Right. Taboo game. I'll mainly go over the basics as well as some English lessons. These are mostly just the strategy and tips I know from my experience of the game. So I'll go over the rules again. What do you got? Taboo, browser game. There's a describer and guessers. Describer has to describe a list of words to his guessers. Guessers have to guess it. Um, they get points if they guess it. The describer isn't allowed to say the word directly or indicate its spelling or pronunciation, and that's what makes the game interesting. I'm not very clear with what way of describing word would break the rules or not. I actually think it's kind of a spectrum to me because it's kind of complicated. It's not very that breaks the rules or it doesn't. This makes me think that there might be better if we had some system that gives less points, like the way the describer said it broke the rules, if you know what I mean. Now, start off the guesser strategy. So this is going to be, well, already going to be a lot simpler than the describer strategy. So when your describer is describing a word, so you want to, guess up the ideas and guesses as to what they mean. So when your describer has finished describing a word, type like mad, think as many words that could mean what they're saying, watching out for synonyms, I'll get to that in a moment. Try spelling variations of the word, like is it plural or singular, or just close, like you might have the spelling wrong. Maybe try multiple words as one guess, because sometimes words are multiple. Watch out for multiple ways what this thing can be interpreted. And also, feel free to ask questions here to describe about what they mean. If that's allowed, it's not going to take the game this seriously anyway. And focus mostly on the word your describer has most recently finished describing. Now, what I mean by watching out for synonyms, it's when synonyms, which are different words that mean the same thing, for example, buy and purchase. So, for example, if your word is buy, and then you want to say it like opposite of sell, the guessers won't really have a good time knowing what you mean by buy or purchase, right? This is why I tell you to guess all the things that it might mean, right? So when they say something, there's what they said and the multiple ways it can be interpreted, and you really want to find all of that. Right, see where I'm going with this? As you can see, there's also the other ones like homonym, heterograph, heteronym. Here's the cheat sheet for it. When there's pronunciation, spelling, meaning. You get the point. There's more to it. I'll go over that later. No, maybe not later. Just whatever you get the point. All right. Now let's start considering more of the describer strategy. So when you're a describer, consider following when describing words. So you also have to consider the guessers, of course. So are your guessers smart in this area? I mean, are they smart with English and being able to do this stuff and imagine and the creativity and considering stuff, that kind of stuff. It's hard to explain. Are your guessers fast typers? How cultured are your guessers? Do they live under a rock? So do they read the news? Are they up to date with their memes? Do they know their references and have they seen a lot of stuff? For example, the word Voldemort, that relies on at least one of your guessers knowing what Harry Potter is. And how well do you know your guessers? So do you know what your guessers know with their references and stuff? And how well do your guessers know you? So how well will your guessers know what you mean? That can kind of help if they do. I've also seen common tactics used by describers over my experience. So I'd say there's the opposite of strategy. So if you want to say fast, you can say opposite of slow. That's usually good. And is breaking down the words into smaller atoms, that's complicated. And describing the parts of a physical noun word, so you have to specify it, maybe try and zoom in and explain what parts there is. So if it's a car, on four wheels, on the road, has doors usually, etc. And then as in, so for example, like the word bat, you would sometimes need to clarify what you mean. So bat as in baseball bat or animal bat, you get the point. another word for. So this is when there's multiple words with that same meaning. So you could, another way you could say purchase is just another word for buy, and just hope they get it at that point. I find this one useful. You can say the target word is like what, and then put it in a phrase. It's usually in. So like fill in the blanks. So Great Big War that started in 1939. It was World something too. In Minecraft, when you crash into a wolf and elytra, the player experiences kinetic energy. Or my mom always told me life is like a box of chocolates, right? You can see where I'm going with this? And it's common references and knowledge, so just the stuff that's commonly known, you'd want to pick on that if the word is possible to do it with. It's useful. Now, there's verb conjugation, so there's the end of the verb, or just its variations can change depending on its context. I'll go over that later in depth later. So there's normal forms, so I'll just use the word dance. So when you dance, when it ends with S, so when someone dances, so he or she dances, right? Third person singular. Ends with ing, so when you're in the middle of dancing. Now, the shin, as you can see, doesn't work with dance. Only works with some. So hydrate, to hydrate, hydration. Contract, contraction, right? See where I'm going with this? Ends with er, so dancer, so someone who does that thing. And able, so to beat, beatable, to debate, debatable, right? Something that can be debated. Now, simple past tense, past participle. I won't go too deep from that to that. It's kind of complicated for like a tiny thing. So just past tense. So I'll just usually say it like when something was, or in past tense. This is only for specific verbs, like for example, fly. There's flew and flown, right? Both past like variants of the word, but they're used differently, but that's kind of complicated. And yeah, there's some words that some exceptions, like for example, attend, attendance, right? Not quite turns into shin, right? Exceptions. The little thing about English I know, there's personal pronouns, and then they can change depending on a context. So first person singular, that's I, me, myself. So first person, the person who is talking. Second person, the person who is being talked to. Third person, the person who is being talked about. And singular or plural just means there's multiple. So I is singular, we is plural, right? Multiple. Now we don't quite have, as you can see, we don't quite have a proper word for second person plural. We just usually say it as like you guys or y'all or you all, yourselves. I'll explain what these mean as well. Like this subject pronoun, object pronoun, reflexive pronoun. So as you can see, I, you, yep. I, you, he, she, we, that's the subject pronoun. Me, you, him, her, us, object pronoun. Reflexive pronoun, myself, yourself, herself, ourselves. So subject pronoun is a derivative verb. Object pronoun is the action of the verb. It's also said after a preposition word. There's also some other rules and exceptions and complications. So for example, it's I see you. I'll just use he or she for this to make it simpler. So I see him, right? So him, because they're the action of verb, like this, you've seen the action. But then it's he sees me, so that changes it a bit. And then it's I see myself if the object of the pronoun is the same as the subject of the pronoun. I already kind of said this, but verbs change depending on the subject pronoun of the verb. So first person singular is am. I'm using to be as an example, is like we can really see it. It's you are, they are, we are, and then she is for third person singular. Others are, and for past tense it's was, were, and I guess it's a bit complicated. The difference between was or were, and like there's also the subjective, no, what is it? Subjunctive tense, which you probably don't get taught in school. I won't go into that, of course. Now, discover strategy. All right, so word shows up. So C word, judge if it's sayable, I'd say. So if it's not, so you don't know the word, just skip it. If you will understand it, but you're not sure if your guessers will understand it, like I said, Voldemort or whatever other reference, I can't think of examples at the moment. Just leave it as low priority and move on. This judgment should take at most 3 seconds. If it's hard to decide, just make the word low priority and move on. It's not exactly taking 3 seconds to look at the word. It's usually just a glance at like the list of words and like having a quick intuitive judgment of like what's best to choose. So if it's sayable and you think the answer is understood, of course you start describing the word. So if they get it, move on immediately. If they're still guessing after 6 seconds, you move on. I'm debating whether I should change these values, like 3 seconds, 6 seconds. It also depends on how much time you get. Yeah, it's complicated. And then, yeah, this repeats. So come back to lower priority words when list exhausted. Again, just me. I'll make a small pause when I'm moving on to the next word. But do note that I may be describing one of the same words, but in a different way. So now that's for describing the word in depth. I'll try to make it obvious what word I mean, like whether it's a noun, verb, or adjective word. I'll try to make it what variation I mean, singular, plural, and the conjugations. Just nothing else I'm going to add. When I say what or this with emphasis is when I'm indicating a fill in the blank. When I say something with emphasis means I couldn't say that word due to it being too close to the tag word. So for example, if you put bread into a something, it turns into what? Kind of get the idea? Like I can't say toaster, so that's too close to toast, my target word. And yes, I did get this from rewatching my games I've played. You might know that. I'll also just add this. I'll yell scratch that to mean I'm skipping this word and want you to forget about it, because if you think about it while I'm describing the other word, it's going to mess up your brain because you're still kind of thinking. But yeah, it's complicated. This is all complicated. You know what I mean. Now, just for when it's useful for me to say verb or adjective words. So, for example, I can say verb word, opposite of open, as in to open, to close. But if I said as adjective, like opposite of open, like open as an adjective, as in the store is open, the opposite of that is the store is closed. Right, you see this? They'll probably still guess it anyway, because if they're following my tips of trying the variations. But you see where I'm going, right? And there's also opposite of far, right? There's close, the verb, and then there's close as in near, right? There's multiple ways you can describe the same word. I'll also want you to pay attention to what I mean when I say a what. So for example, if I say something a dog owner says to their dog when their dog does something right, like, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? So if I say, who's a what? Who's a what? Right? The blank can mean good boy, as in the word was the 2 words to give a good boy. But if I said, like, who's a good what? Who's a good what? That can mean who's a, just boy, right? If you notice where I'm putting these blanks. Because I saw a game where someone screwed this up.